What is probability? Probability is the chance something will happen, and it is a number from 0% to 100%. 0% means an impossibility, and 100% means it's a sure thing. In an endeavor like trading, you can hardly get an exact probabilistic number regarding a potential move in the market or even a trade outcome using technical analysis. The uncertainty level is too high, and most technical traders arrive only at an intuitive assessment of probabilities. In other words, we are wired to look for patterns, and we tend to see them where there are none. Technical traders make money in the markets from understanding the concept of trading an edge. We believe it is crucial to your long-term success to understand exactly how, when, and why you have an edge in the market, so you can realistically align your expectations for profitable trading. Most beginners find a system or strategy that will win 70% of the time, and are disappointed to find that after their first 10 trades, they haven't won 7 times, so they look for another system or change the rules. Risk. Knowing the odds. Newer traders like to indulge in the illusion that they can explain and anticipate anything and everything using some fancy indicators or their uncanny chart reading skills. But it's not that simple. Yes, you can learn to better assess probabilities intuitively, but this intuition gets refined over time with experience and practice. What's more, at first, you're likely to make a lot of mistakes and get fooled by randomness, as Nassim Taleb eloquently puts it. And finally, even with countless hours of studying the market, you're unlikely to become the next Paul Tudor Jones. Remember, the uncertainty level is quite high in trading, and no amount of analysis or skill will change that. Hence, pro traders focus more on managing risk, the effect of uncertainty on objectives, rather than obsessively making high probability predictions. What is mindset? A mindset is a belief that orients the way we handle situations, the way we sort out what is going on and what we should do. Our mindsets help us to spot opportunities, but they can also trap us in self-defeating cycles. This lesson isn't about all the beliefs we might hold. It's about the beliefs that make a difference in our lives. The beliefs that distinguish people who are successful at what they do versus those who continually struggle. The Stanford University psychologist Carol Dweck popularized the idea of mindsets by contrasting different beliefs about where our abilities come from. If we have a fixed mindset and think that our ability is innate, then a failure can be unsettling because it makes us doubt how good we are. In contrast, if we have a growth mindset, then we expect that we can improve our ability. And failure, therefore, shows us what we need to work on. People with a fixed mindset are out to prove themselves and may get very defensive when someone suggests they made a mistake. In other words, they measure themselves by their failures. People with a growth mindset, on the other hand, often show perseverance and resilience when they committed errors. They become more motivated to work harder. You can imagine how much having a fixed or growth mindset can affect our lives. Mindsets aren't just any beliefs. They are beliefs that orient our reactions and tendencies. They serve a number of cognitive functions. They let us frame situations. They direct our attention to the most important cues so that we are not overwhelmed with information. They suggest sensible goals so that we know what we should be trying to achieve. They prime us with reasonable courses of action so that we do not have to figure out what to do. When our mindsets become habitual, they define who we are and who we can become. One of the most powerful aspects of mindsets is how quickly they can be shifted and how powerful the consequences can be. Unlike skills that have to be practiced again and again, mindsets sometimes show dramatic shifts. Rethinking winning. Essentially, traders focus on what they already know and feel comfortable with, rather than information that is not consistent with their self-image of being a winner. This focus locks them into repetitive patterns of poor performance because they are trying to control what is not controllable. The more they try to force their will and be right, the more the fight-flight response triggers the emotional brain. This emotional response is fixed into habit and fires off reactively when uncertainty is engaged. So much for depending on reason and logic in trading. This is when fear of loss, chasing trades, revenge trading, and fear of missing out can ambush patience, discipline, and impartiality and create a reactive pattern in which most traders stay stuck. A focus on winning, controlling the outcome and self-image, is confronted by the real feedback of losing. Now the trader has a psychological problem. His performances do not support his self-image of being a winner. This is where traders develop anxieties and anger management problems in their trading. They keep trying to force the idea that they are a winner when the evidence shows that a winning attitude does not work in trading. Yet, it is all they know, and they are very resistant to changing their self-image of being a winner. But what if they did have the courage to confront their idea of themselves as a winner? What if they redeveloped their self-image from a focus on winning, which they cannot control, to performing, which they can greatly influence? Suddenly, their self-image is no longer under attack, signaling a biological threat to the emotional brain. If instead the trader became the manager of the mind that was brought into the moment to engage uncertainty, winning and losing would look very different. This represents a different organization of the self to project upon the markets and from which to get feedback, adapted self-image. This is how consistently profitable traders weaponize the mind to serve instead of the mind enslaving them. Then the trader is not trying to win so that he protects or enhances his self-image. Rather, he or she is acting to maintain a performance level that secures his self-image. He becomes a manager of probability rather than clinging to controlling certainty. This he can do regularly and with confidence. It is a performance with no control over outcome, so he grades himself by the competence of the performance, not whether he wins or loses. So the sense of self or self-image is not trying to control what they cannot control anymore. By doing this, the trader's instinct, emotional responses to threat do not trigger the fight-flight response, and the trader can stay disciplined and patient as a way of preserving their new adapted self-image. A large part of a competent performance in trading is concerned with minimizing losses as they occur, or not trying to make winners out of losers by giving them a little more room, moving stops, and or throwing good money after bad. There is room for becoming a great loser or minimizing losses as a competent probability manager of the risk. The trader no longer has to protect his winner's self-image by not losing or not being right. The trader accepts his powerlessness to control outcome, and in doing so, he claims something greater. He listens to what the market is willing to give and to take with no personal stake for his fragile ego. His self-image is rooted in performance, not outcome. This is a massive paradigm shift in the mind that the trader brings to trading, thus allowing the trader to move focus away from the outcome of each trade and judge themselves purely on whether they followed their process and rules. The process-oriented mindset replaces the old outcome-oriented mindset. Key questions you must ask yourself. This tougher course of action takes courage and the willingness to face discomfort and learn from it, rather than to stonewall the truth staring you in the face. That's the tough part. The good news is that self-image is malleable. When forced to, people can change, but it takes a willingness to change. Imagine that you decided to change by intelligent design rather than staying until the ship went down. What a difference it would make. Think about your answers to these questions. When you trade, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to win? Make money? Are you trying to be right? Are you trying not to lose? These are things that you cannot control. Can you imagine what a trader's self-image feels like when it's under attack? Or is your focus on performing in the moment and following your rules? Last question. Which is more important to you? Winning or being effective as a way of managing your trading mind? The only engine of survival, long-term, is effective performance. Would you be willing to change your notions of winning and losing if that were the only real option? Think about it. The markets will give you honest feedback no matter what you decide. Conclusion. The biggest problem that traders face is themselves. There are plenty of smart traders who are not consistently profitable. There are plenty of highly knowledgeable traders who cannot keep it together to become consistently profitable traders. This need to win, to be right, and/or to not lose in order to maintain and protect their self-image rather than become a competent trader stands in their way. Only after traders blow up their capital to dangerous levels do they see that the problem in their trading is staring them in the mirror. This need to preserve their self-image gets in the way of their growing as a trader. It is both a biological and psychological conundrum. Most turn a blind eye to the problem. They don't allow themselves to experience the fear and shame that would come with a disturbance to their self-image. To the primitive emotional brain, maintaining the feeling of being a winner, even if it's a deception contrary to the evidence reflected in your equity, is far more instinctive and of the subconscious than changing the way you perceive. However, trading is a domain of participation where the probability is the central operational criterion, rather than social interaction and the fix of being a winner, thus allowing the trader to move focus away from the outcome of each trade and judge themselves purely on whether they followed their process and rules. The process-oriented mindset replaces the old outcome-oriented mindset, and the trader becomes a disciplined master of risk who honors their trading plans and rules.